Hello, and welcome to another captaincy video from Fantasy Football Scout. It was an easy one for us last week. Most of the big guns we recommended delivered, even if they did shatter some corner flags in the process. My name is Joe, and joining me to discuss the best armband options for Game Week 12 in FPL is David. David, welcome. How are you?
Yeah, very good. Thanks. As you said, like most of the people that we talked up last week did quite well, and we had a little bit of a few people sort of about why are you talking about anyone outside of De Bruyne, talking up Fernandes, for example, and I still feel sort of vindicated in what happened on Fernandes. I didn't captain him myself. I had loads of other reasons. I had too many risky decisions I took with my team, so I was like, I'm just going with the crowd. I'm going to captain De Bruyne, and it paid off. And obviously, Fernandes didn't start, but when he came on, he was incredible. So if we look at what we were aware of last week, we was absolutely no way we could have predicted a benching. And he came on and he created 8 chances inside 45 minutes. It's the most chances anyone's created in a game this season, and he did it in 45 minutes. So had he played that whole game, then I think he would have been on for another away double-digit haul. We were proved right if we were talking about West Ham versus Fulham defence, because Fulham conceded fewer goals than West Ham, and West Ham would have conceded even more if Fernandes had been on the pitch the whole game, had Rashford not hit the post. So it's quite nice because we put a lot of time into doing these sort of comparisons between defences and different attackers, and while the points didn't go for us last week, at the very least we can see that these trends we're picking up on them now, and it really helps make our decisions for the season. So it's very positive and encouraging.
Yeah, definitely. And Vardy as well. Vardy, he left it late, but he finally did it. And his goal celebration, if no one's seen it, do have a look at it on wherever it may be. He doesn't just hit the corner flag. It just explodes. So either that corner flag's made of, I don't know, some kind of glass, but he just shatters the corner flag. Quite a sight. But onwards and upwards to game week 12. The ongoing chat in the fantasy football community is still, how can we get so many of these heavy hitters into our teams, because they are all performing, and we saw it last week. Salah, Vardy, Kane, Son, KDB, Sterling, even Fernandes, all of them got returns, and it's looking like there's great consistency there. I think Salah looks like the ideal captain on paper. So he's versus Fulham away. The Manchester derby's taking place, so De Bruyne and Fernandes, who we'll speak about a little bit later, could be a little bit out of the picture because it's a difficult fixture. But away to Fulham, that looks ideal. What do you think? I mean, is Salah the obvious captain choice?
Well, certainly on paper, absolutely. With it being Fulham, our eyes are always going to be drawn to that little white badge with the red writing. It just sort of stands out as whipping boys. And but of course, we do have to kind of mention what we mentioned last week, is that this Fulham defence is getting better. I think the fixture still stands out because, as you say, the other big hitters have got each other, so it kind of cancels them out. So if nothing else, that's the main reason that I'm looking at Liverpool. There's 2 ways of looking at Fulham defence. I guess we'll start with them. Is that they are definitely improving. I think anyone who's watching their games cannot deny that. We did predict it last week as well, in terms of that they wouldn't get rolled over by Man City in the same way that Burnley did, although of course Man City did create a lot of chances. But when you watch the way that they execute a deep block, they can actually do it now. And I think a big reason for that is Anderson, the centre back, who seems to be marshalling them very well. And he's a new signing. He didn't start at the start of the season because he had some injury. So the days of like Tim Ream and Dennis Adoy and just this absolute ragtag, like, worst superhero team you could think of, combination of back four just isn't a thing anymore. Between Adara Bio, Anderson, and I think Aina is playing as kind of, they played like a back three against Man City. Those 3 are playing as centre backs, and then they just seem to know what they're doing a bit more. So that is definitely in their favour. And but I think maybe with it being a home game, maybe they're a little bit more susceptible to being countered on than they would be. You're away at the Etihad Stadium and you're Fulham. You aren't really going to do much other than to sit deep, which is exactly what they did. At home against Liverpool, you at some point have to maybe push on and go for something,
Yeah.
and then maybe that's where it's going to be their undoing. And it's worth saying that while Fulham in the 4 matches before game week 11, they'd only conceded 5 big chances, which was like the fifth best in the league. Over the last four now, obviously the window has shifted. They've now conceded 11, which puts them in the bottom five because they conceded 6 big chances against Man City. So Man City created basically more big chances in that one game than Fulham had conceded in the 4 before that. And you've got to kind of look at Liverpool and think, right, well, they're in the same bracket. So I know it sort of seems a bit sort of like going around in circles. It brings us back, right? Yeah, Fulham are still worth looking at, but I think it's worth just kind of discussing their defence because they do look more organised than before, and they did basically restrict Man City just to 2 goals. But I still think they'll concede against Liverpool.
But nevertheless, KDB was, the on paper best choice for the
and
captaincy.
KDB got 14 points.
And he got 14
penalty
points.
taker.
Even Sterling did well there as well. So this is, and where you're looking at the likes of Salah, we've got some stats up on the screen about Liverpool. And that shows that in terms of expected goal involvement, this is the last 4 matches. Salah is the top choice for the captaincy there because he's expected to have been involved in 3 goals over the last 4 matches. He's had 6 shots inside the box, 5 shots on target, and created 6 chances. That's a broad. I look at that and I think that's a broad spread of points. You've got assist potential, goal potential, bonus potential. Nice. For those thinking they can cover Salah with Jota, you can't. You might get some points from Jota. But it shows there that in terms of expected goal involvement, he's half the man of Salah, and coincidentally he's around half the price as well. He's had 7 shots inside the box, 5 on target, and created 4 chances, so he's not too shabby, but it really is Salah to be the man there. Firmino, Mane, Robertson, Alexander-Arnold, they could all do well, but I think in terms of the captaincy, which is what we're talking about here, for me it's Salah. But you can go for a differential with one of these ones, but will Jota start? Will you hope that Salah would start? Everyone's due a rest at some point. I've got some other tables I'll just put up, just to indicate some of the things you were talking about Fulham. Looking at big chances conceded and expected goals conceded. So you're looking at essentially the whipping boys: West Brom, Everton, Leeds, Leicester. They are conceding a lot of big chances, but Fulham are just behind them as well. So they've still conceded 11. West Brom have conceded 13, but the expected goals conceded from West Brom is 9. Meanwhile, for Fulham, it's 7. So a little bit behind there. So it just indicates what you were saying about Fulham defence is still there for the taking, but it's not quite there for the drubbing as it has been.
I think it can be there for the drubbing for a big team because. Of that 11, my on the spot percentages isn't great, but 6/11 of that number was just by one team. So that shows you that in the other 3 games, they they put on a decent show. So I think when they play Liverpool, we can afford to kind of like give Liverpool more credit when they're playing that the Fulham defence. But a lot of people have been using Fulham of like, right, well, Villa play them here, Leeds play them here, West Ham play them here, so I need a player from that team because they're playing Fulham. And I think that that very much is a mindset we shouldn't slip into too easily when we're looking outside of the big clubs, just because of what Man City did against them. So yeah, it's sort of like it's not quite cut and dry. Like, I mean, obviously they play in black and white, but I don't think it's a black and white situation. It's very much a kind of nuanced thing of like looking at which teams can do well against Fulham. It's not everyone anymore.
Yeah, I mean the other table. I mean that's a really good point, by the way. That I think people are looking at Fulham whipping boys. There we go. And as you said, it's certain types of teams, and it's against those cities, the Man Cities, the Salahs, the Liverpools of the world, that they can come unstuck. The other table I got up there is expected goal involvement. This is last 4 matches, and we're looking at big chances as well. You can see Salah's in the mix there. Expected goal involvement's around 3, which is on a par or so with the likes of De Bruyne. The outlier there is Fernandes, and you can see he got it was a foot injury that keeping him out. Solskjaer was keen not to use him, but it was obvious they need to. He assisted a goal, and I believe he was the assister of the assist of the other ones. So without him on the pitch, I don't know if they would have scored anything. you can see Fernandes was way out there expecting goal involvement with 4. He's had 4 big chances as well. But it also indicates there are other options there. So Salah, on paper, it's got Fulham, looks good. My personal bus captain at the moment. By bus captain, I mean that's the team I've put in place in case something terrible happens with me and a bus in the meantime. But there are other options. And I'm quite intrigued by Chelsea at the moment. Now, each week, this is becoming a theme. We look at the fixtures and I say, Werner looks a really good captaincy shout this week. And every week, he maybe gets an assist. He misses some chances. He's such a tease. There is an absolutely huge Werner haul coming. I don't know when it's going to be, and some lucky Werner owners and captainers are going to land on that. And I just wonder whether this could be, I'm going to say but this go back to those stats again. And there you see big chances conceded. Everton 13, expected goals conceded 7.5, goals conceded 7 there. They're on a par with the worst of the worst with their defence. And then you look at expected goal involvement, and you see Werner there. But this is interesting, isn't it? Big chances. Now, am I right in saying you've been looking at these stats all week? Werner's 6 big chances, that's top for the last 4 matches?
It is, yeah. Yeah, so nobody else. Yeah, so I mean, you mentioned any lucky Werner owners out there. I am one of them, and this is one of the reasons why I'm holding him for this week. I obviously have a Salah in plan that involves holding Werner because I feel very strongly that, as you say, a haul is coming. And I do wonder if it will be against Everton because, as you mentioned, Everton's defence is really quite poor. In the last 4 matches, 13 big chances conceded. That's the most in the league, and they're now facing a Chelsea team which I think is one of the top form attacking teams. So Werner is going to get chances. That's just going to happen. Like that, there is no reality where that doesn't happen because he's getting them at the moment, and Chelsea. Yes, maybe they might miss Ziyech, but by bringing Pulisic in, I don't really think the team is damaged in any way. They're still an offensive team, just perhaps in a slightly different way. Ziyech is about playing sort of balls into the box and great delivery, whereas Pulisic stretches defences by his penetrating runs. And so Werner will probably play on the right, I'd imagine, if Pulisic is going to start. But I still don't think that's necessarily going to be an issue for him if he starts there. Because he obviously had some chances in the most recent game. My only worry with Werner, which I guess is obvious, is while I think he's going to get these chances, is can he stick them away? And at the moment, you sort of sense that he can't. But it's a crossroads moment, isn't it? Because as fantasy managers who played this a number of years, we can think of a number of players who've had patches of form like Werner's had, where they have lots of shots, they're great chances, and they put them wide, and then at that point, you're sort of faced with the situation of, is this a guy that can't score goals? Or is this a guy that's going to be like kind of riled up by the fact that he's missed so many chances that, as you say, he's just going to stick 3 in the goal in one game? And that could happen. But in terms of looking at this in the kind of through the lens of the captaincy, I'm still just a bit worried on that front because when we look at his accuracy, it's not. Salah, I actually prefer, to be perfectly honest. Because so not so much accuracy, because actually Werner's accuracy is about 50%, which isn't too bad. It's his goal conversion is just 9.1%, which is quite low. And so then obviously that tallies with what we're seeing in the games. Whereas you sort of just get the sense that Salah is that little bit more deadly, little bit more. He's got the confidence on his side. He's been doing this for ages. I'm struggling to actually find his goal conversion right now because 33% is Salah's goal conversion rate, which is it's over triple what Werner's is. That for me is just the clinching thing. Werner's stats are great enough for me to hold, but they're not what it all boils down to in terms of can he convert those into points. I trust Salah to do that sooner than I trust Werner to do it.
I mean, I think it's a strategy point of view here, depending where you are on the rankings, what you want to do, sort of your manager, your attitude to risk as well. But here is the scenario this week. City are against United. They will Fernandes and KDB and Sterling indeed is not very well owned, but they're not going to be well captained, I don't think. Could be. But say they don't get much. Say they blank, maybe get an assist, something like that. Salah maybe benched. Klopp has indicated because he's got Jota in the side, he can afford to rotate players every now and again. It's only Fulham. So you never know. That could happen. Meanwhile, Werner, this is his 18-pointer. This is where he goes to Everton, who we've seen with the stats there. They are amongst the whipping boys, and Chelsea are great and are gelling at the moment. And we've got the stats on the screen. If you're going to go for a Chelsea asset, it is Werner. As you said, he is missing a lot, but then again, he's getting a lot of chances.
Yeah, well, I think I'll just go back to the accuracy actually, because I feel like I've done him down a little bit in terms of that. Because sometimes when you have a player who can have accurate shots that don't go in, they're sometimes saved by the goalkeeper. So you could maybe suggest that his assist potential is sort of still there in an underlying sense of fantasy assist. Yeah. Someone else turned the ball in after he's had a shot saved, because we have seen him have a lot of shots saved. You know, get one-on-one with the goalkeeper and you think, come on, man, you're gonna score this surely, in the goal he saves. I think that potentially helps him more than people realise. And then just the other thing is that because he's obviously in advanced positions quite a lot, he's created 2 big chances in the last 4 matches, and I'm pretty sure that Ziyech is the only Chelsea player to have created more than that. We always knew he was a complete forward from what we saw at Leipzig, so he can get assists as well. So yeah, my apologies to Werner. There is slightly more to his game than just goals. I think there's assist potential there. Just worth thinking about.
I was quite surprised how low owned Salah is at the moment, and so there are plenty of people without Salah. Salah for us is the on paper captaincy choice. If you don't have Salah and you've got Werner on your side, I think this could be an interesting decision you would have to make. Either you rip up your team to get Salah in, or you just captain Werner, who potentially could do well. Tough decision. Let's have a look at Vardy next. Now, we've spoken about Vardy at home. Now, the stats I've got up on the screen here are all home matches. And what that they show is something we spoke about a couple of weeks ago when Vardy was last at home. He's better on the road. He's not so good at home. That could be... I'm not suggesting that's some kind of weird thing about Vardy, that he somehow hates Leicester suddenly and just loves to go out on the road. It's more probably the tactics of the team. They're not so counter-attacking. There's a more of a low block, and there's tougher defences coming there. They're just sitting back, doing what Leicester should do, really. Just pounce, and then we saw it with the goal against Sheffield United. Vardy just appears from nowhere, runs at the goal. You just know he's going to score. But the interesting thing is, all home matches this season, Vardy is not the best option in terms of shooting at goal. It's our good friend Harvey Barnes, who can't seem to get a look in the side. He's had 10 shots, 10 inside the box, 4 of those on target. So he is shooting a lot there. Vardy's just behind there. 8 goal attempts, 7 inside the box, and 5 on target. So less shots, but more on target. And that just sums up Barnes and Vardy, really. I'm not suggesting captaining Barnes, mainly because of his rotation risk. But there's not appealing stats for Vardy, and we've seen with the points as well. Vardy at home, but he's against Brighton, and Brighton concede. So, what do you think? Do you think Vardy is an option this week for the captaincy?
Well, yeah. I mean, I must admit, I expected a lot more from him at Sheffield United than we got in the end. I guess Sheffield United have been trying to make some improvements. I thought they were better than they have been, so maybe that's an element of it. But I completely agree with you. Like in these home matches, generally speaking, he doesn't have the space to work in. That's the most important thing. Balls over the top. As you said, the goal scored against Sheffield United. You can't do that at home as much when you're Leicester. But I think it does sort of depend on the opposition and who's coming, because you look at who he's faced at home so far this season. He's averaged 3.3 points per game across all these. Burnley at home, that's a deep block. West Ham at home, they're not afraid of doing a deep block, especially when there's no fans, because David Moyes, isn't it? Aston Villa, again, the same, and they had made defensive improvements this year. Wolves, another good, sound, compact team, even when they're the away team. And then Fulham, who obviously in a relegation battle are going to execute a low block. But do Brighton ever do that? No, they don't. That's just not how Graham Potter plays. It doesn't matter what the venue is. He is going to have his team playing free-flowing, attractive football and still losing the game, probably. that's what Brighton fans I think have come to expect at this point. So if there is ever going to be a home game where he is going to have the space to work, I think it could be this one
Yeah,
because Brighton won't be afraid of sallying forth.
yeah,
Lamptey, as we all know, loves doing that. So I think there's going to be space for him to work in, and then if he gets a double-digit haul in this one, I'm not going to be too surprised. But of course, in the context of the captaincy, for me, just too many variables
yeah,
compared to Liverpool. Because as much as that scenario I've just painted a picture of, I think is possible and likely. I haven't really trusted Leicester since, to be honest, like January. Like they are kind of capable of really underwhelming, as they have done in the last two matches. So that for me is why I'd be a little bit worried on that one.
yeah. Also, Brighton's chief frailty, as Vestergaard showed, is set pieces. They just can't. They might as well just not bother. They might as well just hand the ball to the opposition and just say, "Look, this is set. You got a corner. Just take the goal. You scored." And so it makes me think that perhaps some of the Leicester aerial threat guys, some of the centre backs, could be in the points this week. So that's something an aside, something we might talk about in the Scoutcast a bit later because it's less on the captaincy. I'm not suggesting you captain a Leicester centre back this week when you got Salah at Fulham, but that's where I think Brighton's frailties might be. So let's see how Vardy does. Yeah, he's an option, but lots of variables. Hey, what about these two guys, Kane and Son? So, and in some of the, I guess the sort of Twitter, social media bubble that a lot of fancy managers live in, we've sort of forgotten Kane and Son, but they're amazing. They assist each other. That's what they do. So if you've got one, you've got some points. If you've got both, you've got lots of points there. And we saw with all the rankings, they changed so much when Spurs were playing. They're so well owned. Most fantasy managers, these are the go-to guys. Son is absolutely top for points. Kane is Kane. Kane is top Kane. We've spoken about before. He's been KDB plus Harry Kane. He's scoring and assisting. So yeah, they're away to Crystal Palace. And Crystal Palace, I don't know what to make of. Sometimes I think their defence is okay, and then sometimes I think it's absolutely championship level. What do you think? I mean, are we all sleeping on Kane and Son? Should we just captain them every week?
Oh, I certainly think I'm sleeping on them. I took a calculated risk to take them both out on my wild card to get Fernandes, De Bruyne, and it worked initially, and then it stopped working this week in this game week because they did very well against Arsenal. I think I was up to 150k on Saturday night, and then I finished Monday night 500k.
Yeah,
it's crazy. I started the game week about 300k, so I made a 200k rank rise on Saturday.
Yeah,
and then I dropped 400k places. Yeah. I didn't have Salah either, so that played a part. But yeah, Son and Kane, devastating partnership, as you say. Crystal Palace, I think recently they've had some nice fixtures, so their defensive underlying statistics have been better than they were. So in the last 4 matches, they've only conceded 25 shots in the box. Only 5 teams have conceded fewer than that. So you could look at that and be like, oh, maybe it'll be tough for Spurs, but they have been walloped by teams. Like they lost 4-0 at Chelsea, for example. They are capable of that against a form decent team. Wolves played very well against them as well. Didn't really give them much of a look in. So can a Spurs team that's in incredible form do the same against Palace? Absolutely, it can.
Yeah.
I think I know that there were a few people that still had Son for the Arsenal game and quite liked the stat from last week that we mentioned that Arsenal
you were
had conceded.
Right. Another.
Yeah, there we go. It worked out, hasn't it?
You said he was a good outside bet for the captaincy, and indeed he was.
Yeah. Arsenal had been very susceptible to chances down the right-hand side.
Yeah.
Last 4 matches, I think they were the second worst for defending that area of the pitch. So, and that worked out. That combination worked out really nicely and would have been a massive rank rise for people.
Yeah.
Crystal Palace, I can't say that they've got the same problems in that specific area of the field for Son over the last 4. Although obviously, of course, things have been a little bit nicer for them. But across the whole season, Crystal Palace are the 3rd worst for defending the right flank. So 41 chances conceded in that area of the pitch. Only West Brom and Sheffield United have conceded more chances in that area across the whole season, if we look at more than just their appealing fixtures over the last 4. So, as you say, I think we're in our own. We're always in our own little bubble, aren't we?
Mm.
Because the hardcore players who make these videos, watch these videos,
Yeah.
we're all very much looking at the fixtures, whereas a lot of the casual managers aren't doing that. But also, a
Mm.
lot of the experienced managers are also keeping Son and Kane. So it just means that if you've got one and you're looking at who could damage you this week,
Mm.
Spurs can definitely damage you again.
This is
So
it's.
there's a strong reasoning to captain, especially. And if we just
Mm.
kind of go back up to the top about Fulham and think about that,
Mm.
they are capable of that low block now, and that there is a distinct possibility that they only concede twice, as they did against Man
Yeah.
City. Um, if you've got a Spurs asset, I wouldn't think you were completely mad for looking at everything in front of you and thinking, you know what, I think
Well,
that Son and Kane can outscore
I'm
Salah this week.
I'm a Harry Kane owner, and he's my vice captain at the moment. If I get any hints that Salah's going to be rotated, then he'd be my captain. Yeah, I know what you mean about the rankings as well. I mean, I'm as a Kane owner, my rankings stayed the same. Essentially, you get no matter what Kane gets or no matter what Son gets. If you own one of them, you're looking at a grey arrow for that period of the game week. But if you own both, you're looking at green arrow. Um, and if you own neither, it's a red arrow time, and that's just the way it is. So that's why I'm sticking with Kane, and I think he is a good captaincy option any week, really, depending on the opposition. Very interesting what you're saying about the right flank. I'm imagining the goal now against Arsenal. Kane's pass to Son on and on Arsenal's right hand side. Son on the left comes in. Yeah, they were absolutely awful, Arsenal, at that. And if you're saying Palace have got similar frailties on that side, then I'm envisaging the goal again against Palace. Kane passing to Son just whipping down, and there you go. So yeah, good options indeed. I put those stats up on the screen again. The Whipping Boys stats and expected goal involvement. No Spurs involvement there. No Palace in the Whipping Boys. So it shows that what we're talking about here. Sometimes the stats tell you one thing and not the others. And look at the
Well,
points.
Spurs have had hard games,
Yeah.
and Palace have had easy ones,
Yeah,
and then now
exactly.
that's going to flip
Yeah,
again, isn't it?
and
So,
that's
yeah.
going to reflect in. And you mentioned the word casual, which I like because it's something I'm an advocate of, and I've been speaking about on the Scoutcast a lot. And by casual, I don't mean just forget your team, don't bother with it, don't care about it. I mean adopt those principles of the casuals. And I think some people, and by casual managers, people who are just simply getting players that score points and score goals and assists, and people have been sleeping on some of the Spurs assets, but then you look at their ownership, absolutely huge owned by the silent majority there. So yeah, very interesting with Kane and Son. Let's look at some of the other fixtures. There are other options. We have already mentioned quite a few, but there are other options looking at the fixtures there. So I guess the Manchester derby is a consideration. KDB and Fernandes, for example, are no slouches when it comes to scoring points. But the one I'm most interested in, I saw a young man, Danny Ings, come back against Brighton and score a penalty and get maximum bonus, I think, and from 45 minutes.
Yeah, goal-winning bonus, I think.
Now, he is against Sheffield United. We've spoken before about the Sheffield United defence. I still haven't seen anything to think Sheffield United defence is getting any better. Danny Ings at home to Sheffield United. I think he's a good outside bet for the captaincy. What do you think?
Yeah, well, I mean, we've seen how persistent he can be in terms of a threat to people.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't think that's a bad shot at all. I'm gonna speak up for the discount Danny. That's that guy Welbeck, who I signed him for Game Week 11. I got 5 points. I'm so happy with that.
You need to get that in because that's an important maverick move.
Well, I mean, he didn't even do anything. I mean, in my view, he wasn't even fouled. But I'll take the points. I'll take the points any day. But he, the reason I signed him was over the 4 matches before the most recent game, he was top of all Brighton players for shots and shots in the box, and seems to have sort of nailed down that centre forward position. And even when Mopé plays, he's playing as you have those two number 10s that kind of support the front player. Mopé's one of those now, which means Welbeck very much has a clear run at that top spot. And I just think he looks really good every time Brighton break. He's got the legs and he's running into the space and he's quite often just a few decent extra passes away from being through on goal, and we've seen him already do that. We talked at the top, didn't we, about Leicester's defence? It looks rubbish in terms of how many big chances it's conceding. And if we're thinking about space left behind the defence, which is where I think Welbeck can do well and why he actually suits our Brighton system very nicely, he's going to get loads of it away at Leicester, isn't he? And still, last 4 matches among Brighton players, 9 shots, that's top. 8 shots in a box, that's top. 2 big chances, that's actually second, but Mope's had some penalties. So I'm not, I'm not going to captain him, am I? But, if we're going to talk about, the Danny that everyone else wants, let's talk about discount Danny too, because the fixtures that are coming up for Brighton are quite nice.
He was,
he was Danny Welbeck.
On the last week's Scoutcast, he was Karam's differential pick, which pleased me and Az because we are Brighton fans. But it proved, getting the points, as you said. Yeah, I mean, you are proof of that. You got him in, get your points. Interesting. Looking at the other fixtures there, I'm not really seeing. Obviously the likes of Jack Grealish are always an option. Bamford is an option, but he's at home. He tends to do better away. It's West Ham, so there's lots of variables there. These are players good to own, perhaps not captaincy material, but they're Danny Ings. He's my Maverick. If I was a Maverick manager, he'd be my pick. But I'm not. In the meantime, David, thanks so much for joining me. It's been once again we've got so many options for the captaincy. All those stats, they're from the members area there. We've been looking at expected goal involvement, big chances, all these types of stats there. You've got comparison tools there, rate my team as well. Lots and lots of gadgets to play with there to look at those stats and find out who the best players are to get in. But in the meantime, David, thanks so much for joining me, and good luck with your captaincy decision this week.
Cheers, thanks, and the same to you as well, Joe.